This video is going to cover creating better URLs for our posts. We're going to go from using post/id to using post/ and then some combination of the title. The reason why we're doing this, of course, first of all, from the user's perspective, it's easier to remember the URL you were at if the URL is post/ let's say title-9 than it is to remember post/10. At least that's how my brain works. The other part of it is if you are the Google search engine, for example, you're probably going to rank the search result higher if the title is, I don't know, getting started with Git, and the URL is deanin.com/post/git because it has Git in the title and it has Git in the URL. I would personally rank that higher than a blog post that has deanin.com/post/42, for example. The other thing we're going to take a look at is over time, you'll have a profile built for your blog posts or your pages on your website. As this profile gets built, you'll start to establish an authority in the search engine. So the search engine will consider you an authority source and they'll rank you higher just because they know that you frequently talk about this topic. As your URL gets ranked, it'll also have some authority. And if you happen to, let's say, have a typo in your URL for one of your blog posts, you can change the URL, but if you don't have your old URL, so let's say I have a Git here. Let's say I have a installing Git on Windows 10 tutorial. Windows 11 comes out, I update the blog post, and then I change the slug to be installing Git on Windows 11. In that case, that's now a new URL that the search engine has to find, but they also have to update the previous URL because they had it indexed. Now they can either remove it or you can set it up to redirect the old URL to the new URL, in which case your ranking won't get hurt that much. And in some cases, you'll even see your ranking increase. So we're going to deal with those redirects for like the previous slugs for a post. And that's all built into the gem we're going to be using, which is called the friendly ID gem. So let's go ahead and let's add in the friendly ID gem. I'll full screen this, bump up the font size. So we're going to start by typing bundle add friendly _ID. We can now do a Rails G migration to add slug to posts. And it's just going to be slug:uniq for unique. After we're done with that, we can then do a Rails G friendly _ID. And now we can do a Rails DB:migrate command. I'll go ahead and clear the console. I'll go ahead and type a Rails S command to start the server and then refresh the page. So far, nothing's changed. We're still going to post/10. So let's come over to our app, our models, and our post.rb, and I'll hit F11 to full screen my VS Code. The first thing we need to do in here is we need to extend friendly ID. That's just going to give us access to whatever's inside of friendly ID. We can then give this post a friendly ID for the title, or we will use, and I'm just going to wrap this in an array already, but we'll use slugged. We can then come down here and create this method called def should generate new friendly ID. And in here, we'll say if the title _changed ? Or the slug is blank ? So this is going to fire whenever a save happens, I believe. And all it's going to do is it's going to return true if you change the title, in which case it's going to generate a new friendly ID, which is going to be based on the title. Or it'll generate a new friendly ID if the slug is blank, which it'll be blank for a new post. So this will fire whenever you create a new post. This will then be true, and then it'll say, okay, I need to generate a new ID to set it equal to the title. One thing to note is if your title is the same as a previous title, it does handle that. It'll just add a random string to the end of it. So if you do have duplicates, you won't have an issue of two posts having the same URL. Once we're done with this, we can then come over to our controllers and our post controller and scroll down to the bottom. And here where we do the set post, we can then do a post.friendly.find by the params ID. and I think we're good to go. So I'm going to come over here and refresh, and you can now see that this has a posts/10. The issue is if we try to go to this URL how we would expect, it would be posts/title-9. Now that's redirecting me to this post path, but if I come back to our actual blog page and I hover over this link, this post is now set to title-9, but this one down here is still set to post/9. So let's try to go to title/8. So I'll say post/title-8, and now we get a active record not found exception. So the reason why this happens is it's very subtle, but if I minimize this and I scroll up, the reason why the first one works and the second one doesn't is because when I click to show post in the console, the def show method starts by updating the post. And when it updates the post, it comes into the post.rb, fires off the should generate, and it sees the slug is blank, so it generates the slug. So if we want all of these to work with the new method where it has title-whatever in it, we then need to update all of these posts, which we can do by clicking show post for this one. At this point now, if I go back and refresh, our show post now says posts/title-8. But we don't want to have to go through and click all of these. So what we can do is we can stop the server real quick. We'll type a Rails C. And then we can do post.find_each, parentheses, and :save. And you can see when you run that, it will go through and it'll just run a save command on all of these. And for every single one of these that doesn't have a slug, it'll then set the slug. So now, for example, we can say post.first gets you a first post with a title of 0, and then the slug is set to title-0 now. So now if we run a Rails S command and refresh the page, we can scroll down here to title-4. It still has 0 views, so we haven't looked at it. I'll try title-4, which will take us right to that page. So that's how you can set that up. Now, what happens if I edit one of these? So I'll come up to title-9. I'll click edit. I'll actually log in first with one of the users that we seeded previously. And in here, I'll change this to a new post. I'll click update. You can see the slug here is a new post, but previously this was title-9. If I come here, it can't find this friendly ID anymore, which means if we were to do this in an actual application and Google goes through our sitemap, for example, and I scroll in here, it goes through each one of these to check if it exists, and then it indexes it. Well, it goes through here, it finds our title-9 post, and we've changed it to a new post. Well, now if it tries to go here, it'll get an error and it'll just think this is a bad URL now, and it doesn't do anything. It'll then go through and it'll index a new post, but not the other one. So how do we get it to index the previous one and the new one and point the previous one to the new one? Well, this is where you get HTTP status codes. Usually they're just a redirect code, but in this case, we don't have the functionality to do this redirect. Well, it's actually really easy to do with friendly ID. It would probably be about 50 lines of code to do this manually. But with friendly ID, we can actually just come in here where we have the friendly ID title, use %i, and then the square brackets. We can then just do history after the slugged. If we save this, we come over here and we refresh. I will now try to go to /post/title-9. This won't work. But now if I take this and I'm going to copy the old post, I'll actually leave it as a comment down here just so we have something to copy. Okay, maybe I won't because I haven't covered that yet, but I'll just grab this and I'll copy it for now. And we can come in here to edit this post. I'll change this to edited post, click update, and now we have post/edited post. But now if I paste in the old URL of a-new-post, that takes us to the edited post still. So now if they go through the sitemap and they see one of these old URLs, they can then say, okay, I'll click on this. And when they click on it, it'll take them to the edited post. And if it's set up correctly, Friendly ID should even give it a status code of, I think, 302 for the redirect. So I can't find it in here, but if I come over to the Ruby doc for friendly ID, I scroll in a bit so you can read this. Down here, it says history avoiding 404s when slug changes. That's fine. But if you look at the actual find post that it creates, it looks like it suggests actually adding in the redirect right here to do the move permanently. So what we'll actually do is we'll just copy this. I'm learning this sort of as I'm covering it. So we can move this over here and we'll come into our post controller. I'll have a link to this in the video description, but we can come down to the set post and we can backspace a bit. And then we'll say if the params ID does not equal the @post.slug, then we want to return redirect to @post with a status of moved permanently. So I'll go ahead and I'll save this. It'll reformat it because it likes it to be formatted like this. And then I'll come over to our blog and I'll try going to a new post, but let me hit enter in the console a bit first so we can search for stuff. So it takes us here. It now changes the URL to the edited post, which means we are doing the redirect, and it should be up near the top where it does it. So we get the started for the get. This is with our old URL. Parameters are a new post. So it comes into post controller set post, where it gets redirected to edited post and it says completed 301 moved permanently. And that's going to be the thing that teaches the search engine that the new URL is the destination for the old one. And then of course it goes through here. And we'll cover this in the next episode using the bullet gen, how to deal with these N+1 queries, which is just a way of saying that we have a whole bunch of stuff hitting the database for no reason. But now that we have that, we are good to go in terms of our search results. The other thing that I wanted to real quick touch on with this video is our notifications. I think right now, if I leave a comment on, oh, actually that reminds me, we can't leave a comment right now because the finds aren't working for the comments. So there's two ways to handle this. The first is we can add the post.friendly.find to our comments controller. So I'll come into the comments controller. And in here, we can do post.friendly.find params post ID. If I refresh the page and I do a test and I click reply, it now works exactly like we would expect. I can still do the editing and the canceling, etc. But we don't want to have to hit friendly.find everywhere. So what you can do in your post.rb, if we full screen this, we have slugged and we have histories, and I think we can actually add finders to this. And that'll allow us to get rid of this post.friendly.find, and it'll also let our comments work without the post.friendly.find. So if we save that, come back here and refresh, and now I do another new comment. I click reply, and it now adds the comment just fine, and we're visiting the post without using the friendly.find. So that's just why we sort of set this up with the array, is because now we have three different things that we're passing into this array. That's going to do it for this video though. If you're interested in watching a video on setting up devise and email confirmations for your user accounts, I'll have a link to that tutorial on the screen right now.